Welcome to Winning on Issues, where Texas politics meets strategy and implementation. I'm your host, James Dickey, former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Today, we continue our deep dive into Texas political leadership and the policies shaping our state's future with our guest, Kelly Hancock. Kelly is a lifelong Texan, successful small business owner, and a steadfast conservative advocate, now serving as acting Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. With nearly 2 decades in the Texas Legislature, he's played a role in every major issue from property tax cuts to border security and education freedom. Now he and the Comptroller's office are charged with making much of that a reality. Welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here. What first inspired you to take place and run for public office?
It goes back to having children. I mean, it really did, which is all education based. And so we had our first child, and literally that year, I decided to run for local school board. And so I was young, in my late 20s, but education at that time was very, very important to us, and I want to make a difference. And so that's why I started and ended up doing that for 13 years.
That's amazing. Was there a particular moment as a local school board member or as an early legislator that really pointed you to new priorities for Texas?
Well, I'd always been a big believer, even on a public school board, that parents really do know what's best for their children, especially in the educational environment. And the one size didn't fit all. And I'm very competitive. And I think that competition makes us better, and I think it can help in education as well. So, I know some people have been for education freedom for 5 years, 10 years, maybe some of them for 12 months once the governor got playing on that. I've been an advocate for over 30 years. And so it's just all of those things put together and really wanting families and our education system in the state of Texas to be the best in the world.
Well, and I was in that fight, too, for over a decade. And for a while there, it felt kind of lonely.
It was a little lonely. There weren't a lot of people willing to speak out and talk about it. And you can imagine, as a school board member, explaining to your administrators, your superintendents, that, no, I'm for school choice. I support competition. But that's where I was.
That's fantastic. But you've also dealt with some serious challenges while you've been fighting for better outcomes for Texas kids. Talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, literally around the same time. And so you have to go back to 30 years ago, right after we had Chloe, our oldest now. I was diagnosed with a very, very rare kidney disease called IgA nephropathy. No cure, no treatment. It does what it wants to do. And they really didn't know much about it. We were told that it could cause kidney failure within 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. I was fortunate. I was able to live 30 years, and it really was a blessing. The scripture in Romans that suffering brings about perseverance, character, and character hope. And I would say that suffering that I went through brought about all those things: perseverance, character, hope, and it made me a better person living with it.
I don't doubt that at all. From the outside and from a distance, it often seems like people live charmed lives, but the more you get to know folks, no question.
Yeah, nobody knew. I mean, my family knew that I was having to deal with a disease, and I was being tested a lot, but I didn't want my colleagues to know. I wanted to live a normal life, and I wanted to be as productive as I could, and so go to another verse, Ephesians 5:15 and 16. It teaches you that we're told to be as the wise, not as the unwise, making the most of every opportunity. And if you take those two together, that's kind of the life that I've tried to live, is not knowing how long I would live, when I would go on a machine, or if I would, but make the most of those opportunities as the opportunities presented themselves. And that's kind of, James, that's why I'm here today, is opportunities just kept popping up.
That is amazing. And while you were dealing with all of that, and while you were waiting to see what the future brought, you were also accomplishing some pretty significant things as a legislator. What are you most proud of from that time?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we did, and we were able to pass on. I had roughly an 80% passage rate, which is 4 times the average. I was able to pass some key pieces of legislation. The border funding, I think, was huge, and all that we did there to secure our border as Texans. And now I'm in a position to try to get those funds back from the federal government, which we're working on. The other one was, it took me 10 years to pass a spending cap limit of population and inflation. And it took a little perseverance to keep that going, but we actually got that passed so that Texas now has one of the tightest spending caps in the nation. And then, you go back to Texas education freedom accounts, which 30 years, supporting that and going in. And like you, getting to the point that a couple of years ago, I thought, okay, we're just going to have to deal with charter schools and public and just, do what we can with what we got. And yet here we are, and here I am.
And that's a great segue. As I was telling a couple of folks how excited I was to interview the Comptroller of Texas, folks like me with a business background go, okay, Comptroller, accounting, why should I be excited about that? And I started to tell them about some of the reasons to be excited about. But in your own words, why should someone who doesn't yet know about the Comptroller of Texas really be interested in making sure that what happens here is done well?
Yeah, well, you need us, and you want us, and you want somebody that has that experience as a small business owner and works for a large corporation as well, that has that diverse experience and has the legislative experience. Where I spent 10 years on the budget writing committee in finance, and then was selected by Lieutenant Governor Pachter to serve on what we call legislative budget board, which is a select group of individuals off of that finance committee. Because we are the chief financial officer of the state. I mean, your resources, because we don't have any as a state, but your resources, we're responsible for the accountability of that. We audit all the agencies, come up with efficiencies. We'll be working on the Texas DOGE with Governor Abbott to enhance those and make our government even more efficient and effective than it is today. And so it's an important position, and we're doing other things. Broadband deployment is in our office. That was sent over from the legislature there, and we were able to make some quick moves when it came to broadband. I officially took over July 1. Well, Kerrville and the flooding, not just Kerrville, San Angelo as well, took place on July 4th. Well, we immediately jumped and moved very quickly to make sure that those resources, $220 million, were quickly moving, and that application for those funds were quickly moving to address those emergency notification equipment and to address replacing much of the equipment that was washed away that allowed individuals in those areas to communicate. So we're able to move quickly in that, in emergency and disaster, as well as provide tax relief for those businesses in that area, giving them more time to focus on what was really important at the time, was the flooding. And of course, now, 30 years of waiting, we're in charge of literally the largest education freedom program in the nation. And we're excited about that, and it's going extremely well. We got a good team on it.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm very excited and can't wait for that to become a reality as well. So what has been, you had an amazing pass rate. I mean, 80%, like you said, that is 4 times the average. What was the biggest challenge you faced moving policy from a great idea to actual law?
Yeah, it is getting it passed. Initially, that's a huge challenge when the vast majority of the legislation that's filed never passes. And then working with the parties. I mean, I think one of the things that we always did that not everybody does is we just brought all the parties in, and we worked together towards a common solution that's best for all Texans. And it's a kind of a community approach, and we want to hear from even the naysayers, because they may have some points that we need to recognize as well. And so it's just trying to work with everyone, but recognizing what your ultimate goal is, and is that to pass a good piece of legislation that will help the Texas economy and help Texans across the state.
Well, and I can say firsthand, I had the pleasure of working with you and your team on several pieces of legislation, and I found that to always be true, that you were good about making sure everybody got in.
It's a very open door policy. I've always had that, and we continue to have that in the Comptroller's office as well. And in fact, I have a little secure code because we're an agency that we have to be protected. And on that. But yeah, I enjoy working with people and always have.
That's awesome. What new policy tools or reforms, in addition to school choice, what other reforms excite you most for Texas taxpayers?
Yeah, we got a lot going on, which is kind of cool. It's bringing, when it comes to Texas Education Freedom Accounts, having started a business from scratch with literally nothing, that's essentially what we're doing here. And so I'm replicating that experience I had as a small business owner, and we're doing that in some other areas. One of the first things we did, signed off on a new kind of the financial backbone, financial systems. So we're deploying that, that just like in any big business, that'll take, months to implement, but we have a new computer system for that financial system, which is the backbone of all of our operations, to allow us to produce more transparent and more accountability there, information in a faster period of time. And so we've got to get that in place. But while we've done that, we store enormous amount of data. I mean, just enormous amount of data. And people come to us all the time saying, hey, do you have information on the average wage in, Bexar County? Do you have, the average education in Abilene? And we have all that information. We can provide that. And so when I got there, I told the staff, I want to make this open to help grow the economy, to help expedite this information where it's all online. And so we launched what's called TexStats, TexStats, which you have access to real-time information on all those things, and you can drill down into it, and you can see where Texas performs against the rest of the nation. 8 times the amount of trade or manufacturing takes place in our northeast quadrant of the state, up between Tyler and Texarkana, as the rest of the nation. And so cool information that's available that we had, and just becoming more transparent and user-friendly to everybody. So a lot of new technology and new things that we're implementing, and a different, a new mindset of a can-do type of mindset.
That is so important, and the transparency is so important for good government. So as an experienced legislator, you knew a lot about what to expect in moving over to the Comptroller's office, but what surprised you the most as you stepped into this role?
Yeah, I thought I knew a lot until I stepped over. Just the enormity of it. I mean, it's 3,000 employees, 25 offices in the state, 4 out of state, where we do auditing and enforcement as well from out of state, because so many other areas are doing business in the state of Texas. And we've been to 10 of those 25 offices. Wow. And then, there is an adjustment a little bit for both me and the agency. I have to recognize this is a government agency. It's not my own personal business. Yet they have to recognize that my sense of urgency is a little bit different. And I'm kind of a no excuses kind of guy that, you find a way to make it work. And that mentality, it's catching on across the agency, that when we come across issues and we know we need to do something to address that and make sure Texas is a better place to live, work, and do business, then let's find a way to get it done.
That's fantastic. Well, and that's a good segue too. Now that you're getting in and you're visiting those offices and you're seeing what's going on, what do you see as the most exciting opportunities?
Well, I mean, let's go back to it. I mean, clearly, for me, somebody who's spent years in education, I have 6 grandkids, number 7's coming. And so it's all about education. And, I just came from West Texas, where we have Stargate, database, and AI is coming. And people don't realize that's 7,900 jobs, James. And so those jobs start somewhere, and they start in kindergarten. That's really where they start. And so a lot of those jobs right now are having to be filled with people from out of state because of our education system and the career and technology. And we just got to fill that pipeline. And we're going to continue to grow as a state. And so to me, nothing's more important than Texas Education Freedom Accounts. And so I love it. Initially we came up with the name just because ESA is boring. So it is Texas Education Freedom Accounts, and we're excited about it. And one of the things is we really weren't going to start promoting it till November, according to the plan when I got there. And I'm like, no. We got to start now. Yeah. And the reason we start now is because that population, the low income, the special needs, while those of us that work around Austin or in government relations are very aware of it, and we know we've been fighting for it for years, the average citizen out there doesn't know that it's coming, especially in the low-income areas, which is where we're trying to target and really focus and provide that improvement in education that will spread to all levels of education. And so began going out and visiting. I've been to my third TSTC campus for career and technology because people weren't aware that, no, these can be used for career and technology education.
Absolutely.
I've been to several private schools in the Houston area, in the Dallas area, in East Texas, in low-income areas to help promote it there and get some coverage. And now we have our partners on board that we've enlisted as we get this business, this up and running. And so we're continuing to promote it and are excited about it because I truly believe it will improve education in all areas, at all locations across the state. And we're ready to get it going.
No question. Competition works every time it's tried. Well, what advice do you have for citizens and future public servants aiming to make a difference and an impact, a positive impact on Texas government?
Yeah, the biggest thing is get involved. Looking back, I was 28 when I ran for school board. And I will tell you, the place you can make the biggest difference is right there locally in your own backyard. And it gets you started where you learn. It's essentially an apprenticeship. And I had no aspirations to be here. I just wanted to serve and help people. And that's where I am today. I had no idea I would be here and the governor would ask me and support me in being the state's comptroller. And yet I'm thrilled about it because how do you tell Texas no? What a great place to work. And I get to say I'm employed by Texas.
It is a fantastic thing to be able to say. And yes, being able to serve Texas, the best answer for anybody who wants to serve is I want to help.
Well, and serve wherever you're at. Because wherever you're at, if you'll just make the most of the opportunities, then you don't know what opportunities will come. And that's kind of where we've found ourselves, is just when opportunities arose to serve others, I said yes.
Well, and serving locally, you're right. It matters so much. In fact, we all saw very painfully so during COVID how important those local service positions were.
Right.
That's awesome. All right, last one. How can Texans better engage with the legislature and with the comptroller's office?
Yeah, a lot of that is online now. There's a lot of information, and you don't have to come to Austin to get engaged. You simply can click on a site now. There's a lot of ways to follow. We've tried to make our office much more transparent. We're going to do that as well. We have a website coming on with Texas Education Freedom website so that it'll be easily accessible. You can do that through our comptroller.texas.gov website right now, but we want to make it even easier to access, and so we'll have our own as we're on there. But yeah, I would just dig around and don't worry about not knowing anything. And everybody in this business knew nothing until they got started. And that's how you learn. So, and you're never too young.
Never. That sounds like a great place to wrap it up. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, James.